Archit is our next speaker, and we have been seeing you in the sessions building up to your own session. And the floor will finally be yours right after I do a brief introduction of you. You are the co-founder of Lekhak. You can tell me if I pronounce that right. Archit is known for, this is actually co-founding India's first chain of co-working spaces, Co-work-in. His journey as a filmmaker forced him to come to terms with systematic problems in the cinema ecosystem, very interesting. And now with the power of the blockchain, we can build a democratic, representative, and equitable cinema world. This is something that, I've never heard anyone to talk about in the various forums I've attended in the blockchain space. So very excited to hear what you have to say. You are building an NFT marketplace for filmmakers to find fans, and through NFTs enable fans to be a part of their favorite artist's growth story. Very exciting stuff. So keen to hear you share your story, your journey, what got you in this space, and then hear about the company that you've co-founded. Thank you for being with us, Archit.
Thank you so much for that. My background, I've been an entrepreneur all my life. Before becoming a filmmaker, I started India's first chain of co-working spaces, and this was a little before WeWork came into place. So it was quite an exciting time to be a part of the startup ecosystem then. And I think I was just lucky enough that some Indian unicorns started out of my co-working space. And that kind of exposure really helped me understand systematic problems and seeing gaps in markets to then try and solve for it. I post that venture, I became a filmmaker, and one of the first films I made, I could crowdfund for it because I felt that, oh, even if I can foot the entire bill, I still need fans, because if no one's going to see my film, what's the point of it? So we could crowdfund for the film, and the film was eventually licensed to Hotstar, which is India's largest OTT platform. But in this entire journey, I would again think that I was lucky enough to get a seat at the table with some bigger studios or production houses in India. And like Bollywood is like infamous for nepotism and having a high barrier for entry. And I think I would count ourselves just lucky that me and my co-founder, we could find some of those seats at the table. But when we reached there, simply because of being outside the cinema ecosystem, there were dogmas we didn't believe in, that other people were okay with the hegemony of. And in that process, we realized that for a writer or a director, they're probably like 6 or 7 people away in the value chain from a consumer who's actually going to foot the bill. Like you as a writer or a director, you need to find a producer first who's now going to look at certain commercial angles of this or the operational mess of it, then go to a bigger studio or production house to raise the money for it, which is now going to go, this production house, the studio is going to go to a multiplex chain, ask them what they're willing to give for such a film, which is going to further go to an ad agency like a JWT or a big ad agency to ask them, oh, how much ads are you willing to run on this film, to be able to backtrack to the price of what your film should be. How much funds can your film raise or be made in? And this seemed like please pardon my language, but like a weirdly shitty ecosystem wherein the person who's actually making the product and the person who's going to be paying the product are so far apart and actually not talking at all. And especially in recent times, because of the OTT wave in India and extremely high mobile internet penetration in India, there's some very interesting figures that came out. Like only about 30% of all OTT subscribers in India come from metro cities. That meant there are a lot of smaller towns and villages, and were paying for this online service, which is very unique to the Indian ecosystem. And we realized that through blockchain, we can now kind of democratize this, wherein a filmmaker can be made to get directly in touch with a person who wants to watch this film. We can make them remove the 6 people from this value chain, which at this point are just trying to add value for marketing, and simply just remove the 6 people and the money they're making. And now you as a filmmaker just have access to far larger pools of money to make your film with, and with an audience which is going to care about what you're saying. Again, like a specific problem in India or across the globe right now is representation in cinema, in media, which is now finally being talked about in a serious manner. Part of what our motivations to make Lekhak was, we started out as filmmakers ourselves, and we were just making a slightly fresher form of cinema, I'd like to say. We could find enough people as audiences who would wait for our films to release, even if they were short films, or who would reach out to us to know what projects we're working on. But when we'd go on the big boys table with people with the money, no one seemed to give a shit about us. And it just led, we kind of came into this framework of, or in this space wherein we realized, oh, there are systematic issues here which are stopping us from making great films. Why not really try and focus on these larger systematic issues and solve for them? Some of the things I would like to kind of like open up this forum a little, and if that's all right, I'd love to know from some people here as well. Do you like the ideas of superheroes? What makes you like superheroes? I'd love to just know. They clearly don't exist in real life. What makes you like a Superman or a Batman or whatever your personal superhero might be? If you could just drop something in the chat, or if audios can be opened up, I'm not sure if that's possible. Anything would be cool.
I think that's a great question. I think that's a great
you could
question.
Answer that for me.
I think we'll open it up and see if anyone wants to answer it, put it in chat. But what really intrigues us about superheroes, right, is the limitlessness of human potential that could exist, or this idea that there is more, and could it be? And I think it's also this surreal feel that it's so far from us, but also this innate knowing that there's a possibility that we have our own superpowers, right? Like it could be both extremes. So yeah,
that's quite interesting. Yeah, so part of this questioning is also to just understand that media gives us dreams. What we see is what gives us some dreams. If no one has ever actually seen a Superman, right? Like you might have seen someone who's super strong. You haven't clearly seen a human fly, but those still exist. It's about using your imagination to give you a view of a world that doesn't exist right now. To look at films is not just a means of entertainment, but as actual constructive ways of societal change, as vehicles for it through equitable representation. Today, when I think of like with me and my team, we were building on a comic as well sometime back. And some of our teammates are non-binary, and they had a very interesting, we had internal debate. We wanted to make a superhero comic, and we're like, what does even a non-binary superhero look like? We don't know that yet, because I haven't thought of it. I clearly don't come from the lived experience of it as a cishet man to be able to comment on it. And that led to some very, very interesting internal conversations about how representations can truly change the world and how we see it, and have real world impact. It's sort of like, if I have a light bulb at my home that fuses, if I've ever seen just a video of someone coming in and changing a light bulb, I now have the confidence of changing it myself. Without having ever seen it, I might not get stairs to just climb up to change it, because I wouldn't know how to even start tackling this problem. And this is the part of cinema that we're trying to empower with audiences, wherein we're making filmmakers, creating like a prestige platform wherein filmmakers are presented to an audience at large, to be able to garner support and find communities that believe in what they're saying. It's not just about the entertainment value for it, but trying to peg it against their social impact. And I think with NFT technology, we have now means to not just empower super fans to be able to gain money out of the success of their favorite artists. It goes the other way around too. It gives an opportunity to a new artist to find audiences which will be willing to give it money. This also solves a slightly more complex problem with crowdfunding that used to exist earlier. I've also raised money through crowdfunding for some of my projects. Like for one of my first films, we had about 120 backers for my crowdfunding. And when we started doing screenings of that film, only about 20, 22 of these people end up coming for the screening. And I realized that's probably just my friends and family and the friends and family of my cast and crew, which has ended up just giving us money right now. This is akin to begging and not someone supporting me for my art. And that was the key difference also, again, that we are trying to solve for. Let's try and get money for someone who actually wants to buy your product, not just because they have excess money to give it to you. And now to support this ecosystem, again, like I was really, when I spoke to Ankur first, I was really fascinated when I opened up the unit's website. And this is the first thing you write up there. It's about bringing a more equitable world. And I believe in that. It might be too idealistic. And I completely get that when you say that, and of how people might not have that sort of confidence. But I believe in a kinder world. I believe that we can, through the power of community, through the power of people, we can make this a better world for everyone. So now to build this entire ecosystem, apart from having this NFT marketplace to help filmmakers, we run a community-run film club, which has about 1,200 members in it now. It is completely free. Consider it like a discovery platform for secret gems on OTT platforms that you would have otherwise not seen. And that's what we've been doing to support this, with a very clear angle of trying to reach out to smaller towns and villages, not just the cream of the populace. Let's try to reach out to people who have otherwise been underserved or not having this exposure before. I'd love to answer any questions. I love to talk, so I could continue talking forever.
There are no questions as of now, so feel free to share. I mean, we're very intrigued about the film ecosystem in general, so maybe you can talk a little bit about the different stakeholders in the ecosystem and how you see this vision of moving into this space of, blockchain, decentralizing all of this, how they will be affected in the film industry.
Yeah, a part of I think the formal film industry problem, not just in India, I think the world over right now, is simply the size of every project. If you're going to have multi-million dollars in every film, you're already gatekeeping a very, very large section of society. It's simply because of privilege right now. And in India, specifically through regional OTT platforms, or even things like TikTok, with the penetration of TikTok to legit every town and village, and people actually coming out there to make small skits, really gives you the insight into that. Oh, everyone wants to be a storyteller. They might have not had the access or exposure to truly learn the art of it. But intrinsically, simply as humans, I think all of us want to be storytellers. All of us want to have a mechanism to share our experience with others. And I believe we can we kind of garner these stories, get these stories together, make them into films, have like small budget niche films, which have niche audiences. You don't need millions of people to come watch your film anymore. You could have an audience of 2,000 people and that's it, 1,000 people maybe, that's it. And you can now backtrack to what the budget of the film can be. One of the kind of game-changing things about what we were doing, and in the process we realized, was all bigger players in the industry work on data, and I think everyone now knows how important data is. And this was part of the hack that really helped us too, was getting this early data on viewership for a film, as to what sort of content does what sort of demographic watch. And now you've gotten that without spending those millions of dollars that you would have otherwise had to as a big studio. You can now do the same thing, get the same amount of valuable data now at a far, far lower entry point to be able to judge what filmmakers or films or stories can be commercial successes and what can actually just exist while you're compensating the artists in it. Another angle to it, since I now have the stage for slightly longer without the questions, is storytelling being such an intrinsic part of human nature. We invented a game a couple of months back. We've been doing its play testing. Hopefully you'll see its release in January, I hope, or maybe end of December if we're really fast at it. We built a game called Plot Twist. It's a card game for storytelling, wherein cards have small cues and fairly short phrases, and you use these cues to build on the story. This is backed by an online repository wherein if you've come up with a nice story with your friends, you can put it there. But what was interesting while we were making a game was, I think it's been about 2 years that me and my team, my co-founder, have been exploring games as a mechanism of teaching and education and sharing. And while we were doing that, one of the problems we realized, like, you take any card game, say something like Uno or even Monopoly Deal, or any of these more generic card games too, they kind of flex on the fact that it's going to make you have fights with your family and best friends. I felt that's a very, again, bad thing to flex on. I think the world can be kinder, which further led us on to elucidate that, oh, you find problems in games flexing on this because someone's going to have to win. For someone to win, someone has to lose. It's a zero-sum game. And that's the belief system we want to stay away from. Can we build a collaborative game wherein there's no concept of winning or losing? And we could finally, a couple of months back, I want to say about 6 months back, come up with it. We've been having almost weekly game nights in our office just to play test the game with friends. And the game's now releasing. And it's a completely collaborative game wherein you aren't playing against your friend, you're playing with them. Wherein you've won if you've come up with, if you've had a nice time, you've won. There's no concept of failure at the game. And this as a mechanism, again, to fuel into the storytelling nature of humanity, and trying to do it in a manner that's still positive, that invites you to be kind. Another angle thing that I'd like to stress on was, like, people tell you, oh, don't use a straw, you might destroy the environment, or don't do that, don't do this. There are too many buttons you don't have to press to save the environment, while there are far too few buttons you need to press to save it. And this kind of shift in our approach to the problem has really helped us, wherein there's so many people, so many, I must say, relatively young people who are complaining about representation, about a lot of legacy issues in media and society, which now can be fixed or should be fixed, or they've been going on for far too long. Now you have a medium to, oh, come here, press a button, get your representation here, right? Or you like an artist, you like a film that's talking about social issues you care about, oh, come here, here's a button that can help you fix society now. And that kind of worldview is what we're trying to kind of build with my company. And so far, I mean, when we started this out, some of these social experiments, I want to call them at this point, about a year ago, everyone we'd reached out to for any sort of collaboration or support or help, they just tell us that this seems too idealistic and foolish at this point. But now in the last, I must say, 1 year, there are about a little over 11,000 people on our Instagram, which have gathered now. We've had over 1,200 members in our film community, which actually talk and share films and give their reviews. We regularly have casual hangout sessions. It's become a space, a safe space where people can now find more like-minded people. yeah, we had the simple thought of kindness through cinema, and 11,000 more people came out of the woodwork to tell us that, yeah, we believe in that too. And that's honestly been inspiring.
That's beautiful. Tell us a little bit, you briefly mentioned actually in the last session that you have an NFT collection coming out soon. Is it linked with the film industry, or is it separate?
It is separate. I mean, we're still internally considering, although we've signed contracts with some of the artists already now, but now we're considering, oh, let's just wait for 20 days and figure out what the government says before we release them, because we're in a weird sticky spot about it. So back in April of 21, we sold the first Indian live action film as an NFT. And that kind of like got us into the space where we realized that this is a very great mechanism to let other artists who might not be as tech savvy as we were to be able to utilize the same ecosystem. So right now we're trying to take some social movements happening in India and trying to build them on, they build their timelines or build assets around these social movements happening in India on the blockchain through NFTs, and use these funds which come through it again to go back to these social movements. Because again, like I think this entire weird finance dude bro culture of get rich quick scheme as cryptocurrency or blockchain, something I absolutely hate now, like vigorously hate it. It makes me angry, it boils my blood. So I want to have alternate use cases that I am willing to present to the audience at large as things, ways in which you can interact with the blockchain and with cryptocurrency, which is not pegged on you getting rich. It is pegged on society as a whole getting better. So unless you believe in a larger landscape of kindness, you might not buy into the products we're doing. But I believe there's a large enough audience out there for our products. There are enough people out there, and I think even today's conference is proof of people being out there who believe in larger good, who believe in use cases of the cryptocurrency and blockchain beyond just a get-rich-quick scheme.
I think the fact that you just said that products built on kindness are the way forward, really. And not everyone sees that, especially in the crypto space. But it's so inspiring to hear you say that, and your intentions and your heart is in the right place. We love that you shared that. Ankur here says that we'd love to see a quick preview of Lekhak Estate. If you could share your screen space and take us through your beautiful office, that would be lovely.
So we have like a minimum viable product of a metaverse that's the basis of the entirety of our existence at this point. I think I can screen share now. Yeah, okay, great, perfect. I will just screen share. I'm very sorry, I just have too many things opened up. I apologize for that. I was working before I came to the conference. Well, yeah, like, so this is me, this is my character. I've gotten it to have red horns and stuff, because why not? And you can walk up to people. Like there was my co-founder was moving around. So you can just walk up to people. This is where our team sits. We've got about 10 people working here. So you can move around, walk around. Anyone you come close to, the video pops open. There are interactable objects, like we've got our own film, which was sold as an NFT. You come to near the poster, you can interact with it, and it takes you to the OpenSea page for it. So it's a kind of immersed reality, but in 32-bit as a space. But yeah, this is where we work out of. This is also where we do our workshops. This is also where we have a lot of our community meetups. It's a fairly large space we ended up building. We do intend to have a more immersive space in the near future. We are actively fundraising right now. But yeah, like this could give you like a sneak peek into what it's like to be a part of the Lekhak community. There are benches everywhere. There are fountains. You can sit. You can meet more people when there are events happening. So yeah, I hope you like this. I found this it's extremely cute, so I couldn't just stop using this space. I hope that was fascinating
No,
because it was for me.
it's very fascinating. Thank you for that, Arjun. Thank you for taking the time today. And I'll be guilty. I actually sneaked into his office and I had a meeting of my own with his permission, though. And I actually met Sureel, the speaker, earlier
Oh,
today.
nice.
I actually got him in. I made him sit. We sat at. Unfortunately, I couldn't find the way to go to the fountain, and I didn't want to disturb you, so we just sat in one of the boarding desks and we had a call. But yeah, amazing. So thank you, Arjun, for that.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me here. Uh, yeah, like we've been trying to leverage all these technologies for, again, people talk about metaverse as a thing in the future. I think it's far more possible in the future is now, right? Like a slight effort away if you're willing to put it. Um, and I believe that we can leverage a lot of these technologies for good. And I think with the NFT revolution specifically, not just cryptocurrency as a whole, but specifically with NFTs right now, I think we're at the precipice for the largest change of hands of currency, of money uh, from people who have the money to artists. Even if they're doing it for a get rich quick scheme at this point, there's an artist at the end of it who's gotten some benefit out of it. And that's something we should be aware about. That this is what is happening. There's huge amounts of money changing hands from which has not happened before. Uh, Earlier there was the access to the Sotheby's auction list was only with them, and now that's become far more accessible as an instrument of sales now for an average artist.
Amazing. Yeah. And,
I'd love any questions if there are any. Again, I would love to continue talking anyway.
We have 2 minutes. There's a question from Mary. She asked, can you tell us more about your filmmaking?
Yes. So I want to say I stumbled into filmmaking, for lack of a better word. I've always had a slight interest in poetry. I used to write a lot of poetry earlier. Like about a decade ago in India, there was a wave of spoken word poetry that happened as a revival for poets and storytelling. And I was part of that movement through my chain of co-working spaces, wherein we sheltered a lot of artists in such art communities and told them, oh, you need a venue, here's a venue for free. Because I like poetry, I just get to hear it for free every now and then. That's how it started, I want to say. But eventually, when I quit the co-working space business, I exited from that startup. I was looking for more opportunities, things to get into, and one of my friends was a filmmaker, and he was well respected in the community, in the independent space. And he's like, "I'm making a film. Would you like to be a part of it?" And it was just exciting. It's thought, let's just see how it goes. I'd love to learn about it, more like a hobby thing, if that makes sense. Uh, but when we went around to make that film, the learning curve of making that film was very high for me because I didn't come from a conventional film or advertising background. But it was just super exciting, and that film could get selected at multiple film festivals. It got screened there, both India and at international film festivals. We won 2 awards as well. We got some interest from distributors for it too, and that made me realize, oh, we might be doing something right. Let's just try and do it more. uh, so yeah, that's I think how we got into it. But when we started getting exposure to larger players in the industry, they realized that this is just a weird huge bubble which is bound to fail at some point in time. And simply because I was outside the system, I think I could just see some of those gaps because I was not from a conventional cinema background. And yeah, I mean, even right now, I like some of the filmmaker, like for our film club community, every month we try and find independent filmmakers from remote areas in India that we try and showcase to our film club community. And like one of the previous filmmakers we did, he's from Assam, the northeastern state of Assam in India. And his forte is to only make films out of the folk tales that he's heard as a child from his grandparents. That's the only things he makes films on. And that gets you an insight of, oh, there are millions of people like him who've heard similar stories but have never seen them on the big screen. And if no one makes content out of it, I hate that word too, but if no one makes cinema out of it, the stories might be lost. There's so much history that has already been lost because women weren't allowed to write, share stories. And a huge part of that history we'll never know. We can just only imagine now in retrospect. Now with the internet and blockchain, we have the opportunity to immortalize some of these stories and cultural aspects and actually take back from some of these hegemonic powers, right? Everyone can finally have the power to be equitable. And for us to not look at it that way would be absurd. We're just staring us at our face, and if we don't accept it, we won't really make the most out of it. I'd be super sad about our civilization at that point.
Awesome. Thank you, Archit.